So that's coming up as well. Oh, and we are now entering the season of exams. AP exams are coming up in the next couple weeks, as well as after that being SATs and Regencies. So just happy exam season, everyone. So that's all. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Thomas. Next, we have the Seal of Civic Readiness presentation.
Good evening. My name is Megan Abitable. I'm a social studies teacher at the high school.
Good evening. I'm Rocky Payne. I'm the counseling department head and school counselor.
Okay. So the Seal of Civic Readiness is a program that we have had at Hudson High School. This is our third year, and we'd like to share a little bit about it with you.
So when we look at the 6 keys for school improvement, one of the things I want to say is I have to give credit where credit is due. This actually came in part with a lot of work from our past assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction, Dr. April Prestopino. She played an integral role with the social studies department of putting these things together. They actually had to put together all the paperwork, different milestones, different timelines to submit so Hudson High could really hit this Seal of Civic Readiness. Later, we will talk about parts of this, but if you look at the 6 keys for school improvement, it hits on a lot of them, especially proven data practices, which we'll talk more. Also about tiered approach, support and intervention, and increased monitoring and accountability.
So what is civic readiness? New York State, probably around 2017, it realized that we needed to do a better job promoting civic engagement in schools. We attended a state social studies conference around that time, and the theme of the conference was civic engagement and how we needed to bring more of it into our curriculum, especially at the high school level. And so shortly after that, New York State rolled out the Seal of Civic Readiness. And it's acknowledging that students already are making a positive difference in our communities, and it wanted to recognize them for some of the actions that they're currently taking and encourage them to do even more. So it's 4 components. It's civic knowledge, civic mindset, actions and skills, and experiences. So what is the seal? It is literally a seal that goes on their diploma if they earn the Seal of Civic Readiness. It's an extra designation. It can go on their resumes. It's something that they can use for letters of recommendation, for job applications, and it also can be a pathway for graduation for students who need it. So it can replace one of the social studies regions if the students are having a difficult time passing it. So the timeline here at Hudson. The state offered this program as a pilot program for the 2001-2002 school year. 21-22 school year. We heard about this program. We weren't a pilot school. Most of the pilot schools were really large schools like Arlington and Shenandoah, but we were able to start our application process. So we started to develop our plan, our program, started to complete all the paperwork, and we applied and were accepted to offer it for the 2022-23 school year. So that was our first cohort of students that could earn the seal. And we'll talk a little bit more about the numbers. So how do you earn the seal? You have to earn points throughout your high school career to earn the Seal of Civic Readiness. Do you mind handing this out? We're going to hand out a little placemat that we use with the students to help them keep track and plan for their strategy to earn the seal, because every student is different, individual, and has different activities that they've engaged in, community service that they have done that will help them earn this seal. There are two sides to this placemat. The left side is civic knowledge. So students have to earn a minimum of 2 points from this side, demonstrating that they have civic knowledge. And they can do that by passing Regents exams, by taking advanced social studies courses, earning the 4 credits necessary for graduation in social studies, and completing a department-approved research project. They also must earn a minimum of 2 points from the right side of the chart, which is more of the civic participation and civic action side. This is where they demonstrate that they've completed community service, internships, that they have engaged in extracurricular activities that promote civic engagement, capstone projects, which we'll talk a little bit about them in a little bit as well. And in order to earn the seal, they must have a minimum of 6 points total from this chart. They can earn these points in our school during 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and 12th grade. This is what the placemat looks like. All right, so we have at Hudson High created some supports to help enable students to earn the seal. The number one way that we have done this is by creating a civics elective course that if a student takes a civics elective course, they could possibly earn 3 points towards the seal just from this one course. They can earn 1.5 points from the coursework that is completed during this semester-long course. It's project-based, and one of the big projects that they complete is something called the Student Voices Project, where they work with a group to identify something that they'd like to improve here at Hudson High School and come up with a plan. They do research. They complete some qualitative research where they do interviews with key stakeholders. They craft a plan, and then they present it to Mr. Reardon to try to encourage him to make those changes. So it encourages leadership, critical thinking skills, collaboration, and in addition to that, we get them started with their community service. Ideally, the civics elective is taken in 9th grade, so they're starting to get exposed to community service early on in their high school career so that they can just continue on with it for the rest of the 4 years. They also complete a research project during this elective course where they research ways that the 14th Amendment have been used in Supreme Court cases throughout our country's history. And they write a research paper so that they're accomplishing the research component as well. So at the end of this course, they're halfway towards the seal.
And also, we looked about the benefits to students. Again, about the love for community service. We also have some things up there that we hit on. They do like the extra distinction of the seal of diploma. As counselors, we do write this in their letters of recommendation. And if you look at develop critical thinking skills, and we'll go into how that also goes into the profile of a graduate. And again, it also can increase volunteerism with different agencies. Hudson Greater Promise Neighborhood, Humane Society. So when we talk to students, if you think about it, you're in high school for 4 years. I tell students, it's designed for you not to be here for a long time. So it's not only about what you do while you're here, what happens when you leave us? Who we bring out to society? And when we look at the Seal of Civic Readiness, when we start talking about this, I said, Megan, this is key what these students are doing because it's getting them involved in their communities. And again, we'll talk more about the pathway, but I think that is a thing that helps too. If you look at this profile of a graduate, if you look at the different components around the circle, students who are engaging in this seal, they're actually hitting all of these different components by participating in this seal the Seal of Civic Readiness. And then we kind of looked at this and we were thinking, when you look at the Seal of Civic Readiness, what comes from it? What inspires? So we kind of said, imagine if we had a mission statement, and I will read this verbatim, The Hudson Senior High School engages our diverse learners by striving to instill a sense of curiosity and hope through robust exposure and experiences that will enable them to develop the knowledge and skills necessary for career readiness, contributing to the well-being of our community. And we talk about well-being of our community. I do want to tie in that today we had, which we're getting to numbers, we had our college planning workshop today for the 11th graders, and we were talking about when you're applying to colleges, you are competing with people in the state and throughout the country. And they like to see high grades, like they see extracurricular activities, they like to see people what they do above and beyond. And I said, when you do things like the Seal of Civic Readiness, colleges know that you're going above and beyond, because when you go to the college campus, they also want to know what are you going to do to enrich their campus and their community. And there's some students, as we go into these numbers, for example, the class of 23, 17 students earned the seal. No one used the pathway because back then there were exemptions with COVID. Then you look at 24, 26 students earned this seal, 3 used it as a pathway because the other ones didn't need it for the pathway, but they used it to graduate. For the class of 25, we're actually expecting more students to earn it because some students are still doing reflections, they're still doing projects, and out of those students, 5 we know will have to use it for a pathway to graduate. So if you look at these things, how it's going up and up, and each year, more and more students are doing this. So I think that Hudson is really making its mark. And we talk about like the capstone project, I'll leave going into this a little bit more, but I will say it was very neat to sit on this, to watch this. And again, this is above and beyond that what students are doing. I will say that your committee will consist of, for the seal, of an administrator, and Ms. Molly Zucker is a volunteer at her time, school board president member, Ms. Willette Jones, social studies department head, who's happened to be here, Ms. Sullivan, and we have Ms. Alatabo, other social studies teacher, and I'm the school counselor that sits on it as well. Okay, let me talk about
If you notice on the right side of the chart, there at the very bottom, there is a possibility to earn 4 points for a capstone project. And right now, we don't have anything in place here at Hudson High to help facilitate capstone projects as far as a class goes, but many of our students already do so many things outside of school that they can earn these capstone points from things that they're already doing. An example of this is Deja Jones and Sebastian McDermott. They just spent the last year and a half working on the Unity Community Cabinet that is installed at Hudson Area Library. It was a whole process. They worked with multiple agencies in our community. They attended community meetings. They built the cabinet themselves, and Deja presented to our committee about her journey with this project, and she earned the capstone points. So we do have students earning the capstone through activities that they are doing outside of school.
And I do want to speak a little bit on the capstone. So we had a chance to talk to her, so we asked a question like, do you see yourself, doing more community service in college? Her response was a little surprising, but we understood it. She goes, well, not as much. And she said, because with the capstone, she's still going to oversee this when she's away at college. And so she's still going to be involved in this, and then eventually turn it over to Sebastian, who's going to be a senior next year. So she's literally going to help her community while she's away at college, which I think is key. Another thing I wanted to throw in about the seal, I have to say, about the work that the social studies department put in. When they were initially researching this, if you look at your keys on improvement, you looked at improved data-driven practices and tiered approach. They essentially looked and said, what can we do to help our students that need the most support? Because we also have a transient population. So we have students who come from different districts who may be behind academically. And we have a system in place where we can have a student come in, like Ms. Megan said, maybe ideally in 9th grade they take civics, but we may have a student who maybe come in 11th grade from a different situation where they're able to take civics to start opening up the doorway for this seal if they need it. And so that's also an implication to help students. The other part I do want to put that I know that she'll gloss over a bit was that when you look at the charts, they actually input this in. It's very labor intensive. So this information is put in our e-school data management system. So as a counselor, I can look at one of my students and it still says civic readiness, and Mrs. Abbottabel and the team have already inputted this information, and it's really spelled out. Because now, like Tommy said, we're in the busy time of the year with testing, AP, then graduation. Some of these students, again, will use that as a pathway. As a counselor, it's very user-friendly to say, you know what, this student earns six points, he or she could use this as a pathway. That's very labor-intensive, and their whole department does that. So I'd have to put that in there.
And another distinction for our school district is, as far as we can tell, we're the only ones in Columbia County that offer the seal.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's something that Hudson High School graduates can earn that make them special.
Absolutely. You got some pictures?
Yeah, here are some pictures. This is the picture of the 2023 cohort that we could grab. This is not all of them, but these were the ones that came down to take a picture. And these are some of the 2024 students. And if you notice, the 2024, we upped our game a little bit and handed out medals. And that is a huge draw. These medals to wear, right, Thomas? They're, yeah.
They like it. Think that it? Okay, any questions?
No, thank you.
No.
All right, thank you
Thank
very
you very
much.
much.
Thank you very much. Good job.
Next is Hudson City School District budget presentation.
Good evening. Tonight, Ms. Ferry and I will be presenting a draft budget to the board. The vision emphasizes creating an inclusive learning environment that values the diverse passions, cultures, and talents of students. It highlights a commitment from students, staff, and the community to learn, explore, and achieve collectively. Our mission, this statement, what does it do? It emphasizes inclusivity and motivation for all students to reach their highest potential as Blue Hawks and in their future endeavors. Anything we do, we focus on the vision and the mission of the school district. Those are our foundation where we build from. The 6 keys of success. This budget is also built around the 6 keys of success. And as you can see, based on the last presentation, everything we do is built around the 6 keys of success, which also ties into the state's portrait of a graduate. So the first key, I'm just going to briefly explain again so that we can always keep these first and foremost. Strengthen an instructional leadership capacity. What does this involve? It involves enhancing skills and effectiveness of school leaders and administration in guiding, teaching, and learning practices. It provides professional development and support for our instructional leaders so that they can better influence curriculum, instruction, and assessment to improve our student outcomes. Strengthening the instructional core. This focuses on improving the interactions between teachers, students, and the content by ensuring that all 3 elements are effectively aligned and supported. Schools can create better learning experiences and outcomes for our students. Improve data-driven practices. What does this entail? This entails utilizing data to inform decision-making in schools and across the districts. Our educators and administrators will analyze student performance data to identify strengths and areas of improvement, which allows us to tailor instruction and interventions to meet the needs of all students. Promote a positive, inclusive school environment for all stakeholders. What this does is it fosters a school culture that values and ensures that every student, staff member, and parent feels welcome and supported. A positive environment will enhance student engagement and collaboration among all community members. Increased monitoring and accountability. This approach involves implementing systems to regularly assess progress and hold educators and students accountable for performance by setting clear expectations and monitoring outcomes. Our schools can ensure that all stakeholders are committed to improvement. And last but not least, a tiered approach to school support and interventions. This strategy provides varying levels of support based on the needs of all students. For instance, some students may require intensive interventions while others need targeted support. This tiered system allows our schools to allocate resources effectively and help all students to succeed. The 2025-26 proposed budget, at a glance, we want to maintain general fund programs, we want to create efficient systems of support, and we are proposing no reduction of workforce by layoffs.
So here we're looking at our revenue sources. In order to create a balanced budget, there needs to be an increase in revenue to align with the increase in expenses. With an increase of 3.55% tax levy, an increase of $150,000 of interest income, $2,118,772 use of assigned fund balance, and an increase of $963,762 planned use of reserve. The total revenue is $58,544,000. Through an increase in proposed revenue, along with a reduction of vacant positions and scaling back on underutilized services, the budget is structured to support all expenses without requiring any layoffs. Please note the increase in the employee benefits includes state retirement for the 25-26 school year. This was not in the original budget for 24-25, and then shows an increase in that allocation for this year. So we have done a lot of work on adjusting the budget in the last 2 weeks, and this is where we're at. Thank you.
Great. Yes, thank you for all your work and for making adjustments and getting us to where we are now. Any questions, comments from the board? Thomas?
So on that last slide, I'm just curious where the decrease in instruction costs came from. Like, what were some of the, underutilized something? I didn't hear the last word, sorry.
Yeah, so there's underutilized services. So some of this comes from collaborating with building administrators and looking at the utilization of perhaps software. So looking at the total usage across the district of different programs that actually we have purchased but are subscribed to, and students and staff are not using them. So we're able to reduce those in that plan for those next year. That would be one example.
Is there a breakdown of that decrease at all? Is that available, or?
I can get it to you.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you. Thank you.
Yeah, a full budget book will be published once we approve it, but it also comes from not replacing some salary positions that we're losing due to retirement.
I appreciate all of the work to have a revised budget that doesn't have layoffs like we saw in the last iteration. Do you have a sense of how many instructional positions are reduced by retirement? recognizing that this is like a, you know, that we have a budget gap that we need to close, but just, you know, so that we're fully transparent.
Yeah, so the other thing that I did find as well is that there were vacant positions that we had still, with the work with the board, actually just pointing out that there was some money that was seen that was still left in areas. And then as we did more investigation, there were positions that were budgeted for that we know have been vacant for the whole year. So
Great.
those are also a reduction. So it wasn't only a retirement, but it was also just line items that, with a closer look, were able to be reduced.
And how, and what's the, like, do we know what the number of positions are that are reduced in that way?
Those specifically, I can say two off the top of my head. I don't want to misspeak and give a number, but I can get specifics for you, for sure.
Well, sorry, what about in terms of retiring teachers? Do we have a number for how many teachers are retiring that we aren't replacing their position for?
I have that number, but not off the top of my head.
Okay.
So between the last two meetings, the change in employee benefits is that change in employee retirement. So it was a $1.3 million increase at the last meeting, and I believe the explanation then was the health insurance was going up significantly. It's now a $2 million increase, and that $600,000 is the ERS expenditure. That is I guess I'll call it a change of presentation from last year's budget.
Yes, because last year's budget for employee benefits, that line did not include the state retirements. So you are correct. So that's why it looks like it's a larger increase than actually
Yep.
it is.
You said TRS or just retirement?
State retirement.
It was just ERS. There's a question coming. So I guess with what we're looking at tonight, the $2 million increase in benefits, a third of it is something we spent last year, or we're spending this year, I should say. That's been changed. The $1.3 million in additional health insurance, we're confident that we've got that nailed down based on current year expenditure. And in 23-24, it looked like we were a little underspent on that, so I just want to make sure we've got a solid number there.
Sorry. Do you?
I guess I trailed off, but basically the 14.7, sorry, I've got the wrong one up. The 15.4 million we're budgeting for benefits at this point. We feel good about that. We feel it's affirmatively based on staffing levels currently, current estimates from RCD Trust.
We do.
Okay, all right.
And sorry, my question's about the state aid that we expect and is projected, and I'm just curious about how confident that number is.
So unfortunately, this time, the state has not passed the
Yeah.
budget. We don't know, but that is our projection, and we're always hopeful that that's where we'll be.
Okay. And
So no, not at all. So we are very hopeful that that's where we will be. The state budget has that. We don't have our final numbers yet from the state, but we're hopeful.
if we don't meet that number, if we get less state aid, what is the area that we can expect to see a change in if we receive less state aid?
Yeah, that would be a collaborative discussion. That wouldn't be directly from me, but that's a good question.
Yeah, I would assume we would pull more from our fund balance or reserve, but the past few years, the trend that we've seen is when we budget that number conservatively, we get more. So knock on wood, it'll actually be more than that.
Based on the current state aid formulas, we should be due significantly more, the transportation aid in particular. So unless the state budget is significantly changing those formulas, I do expect we should exceed it, but until the state passes the budget, we don't know.
Yep. And this number is the hold harmless figure, right? Yeah, so, okay. Yeah, like I said, I appreciate all the work. I mean, I think we all know and acknowledge that this rate of growth is not sustainable from a budget figure moving forward. So looking forward to following this budget season, creating a plan with Ms. Ferry and Dr. Pennyman to come up with a long-term budget plan that accounts for all of our expenses, the changes in our enrollment and population, and making sure we provide the best services for the best costs. Anybody else have any questions, comments?
No, I think the only other comment I would make at this point is I know, there's always buzz on social media or various places about going all the way to the tax cap, and we haven't done that in years past. And I guess I would just say and advocate, right, that we know that COVID funding dried up. We know that federal funding feels like a whole big question mark right now. And I think we know that our kids still need teachers and aides and staff and instruction in front of them every single day. And so I just want to put my plug in for folks to not be naysayers out there about the 3.5 and to really just recognize that that's what our kids and our staff and our families need.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Ferry. Thank you, Dr. Pennyman. Next, we have the MCSES data presentation.
Might be missing. Okay, thank you.
I think I have it right. I'm going to actually hold this a little closer so everyone can hear me. I know sitting back there, it was a struggle. But I actually have two presentations tonight, and I don't know how long my cord here is. I don't ever have a problem with volume. But I am here to present not only about our data, but I also am here to present about the attendance task force. So I do have two short presentations. I know following budget was not the position I wanted to be in, but this is where I am tonight. So what we want to talk about is where are we, right? We're give the reality of where we are, look at our other monitors, and look at our whole student well-being, including attendance and social emotional. So I know Dr. Courtwright-Torres was going to be here to present this piece, so I'm going to do my best, but unfortunately she is not. So there is New York State report card data. Within that, there's accountability, and these are based on 3 through 8 assessments, Regents assessments, and graduation rates. Our accountability status currently is a target district, and MC Smith is targeted support and improvement. We are targeted and support improvement for our Hispanic students. As a school, we have spent a lot of time creating with our school leadership team, with our school comprehensive education plan, looking at what can we do to target our students who have struggled. These are the other Questar districts. As you can see, there are a few within the Questar that are target districts like we are. This presentation will be shared with you by Ms. Coons after the meeting. But you can see there are other districts that are target. Good standing is now referred to as local support and improvement. They took away the term good standing and call it local support and improvement. So you can see each building. As you look at MCSES, you can see our Hispanic or Latino population is our targeted population. We are working diligently to implement some interventions. Some of the things that we've talked about is writing for those students, vocabulary, because it's not just an English as a new language problem. It is not just students who don't speak English. It is a variety of students. Actually, it's a larger percentage of students whose native language is English. So as we try to drill into that core, we're looking at a lot of different things, trying to look at attendance, look at socioeconomic, and a lot of pieces to help inform our instruction and inform what we can do to better support our students here in Hudson. I'm just going to go right beyond that one. There are weighted averages by the state, and so it gives you a number in there that talks about each subgroup. As you can see, it's between 1, 2, and 3, and that is how New York State makes its determination. It is not exactly fully transparent as it once was, but this is all based on your comparison to other school districts. Oh, please be there. Okay, so our 3 through 8, this would be, and I'm so sorry for the color, but this was the only way. It was a blue originally, and the blue on blue you couldn't tell once we put it up on a board and what was initially shared with me. So being colorblind as well, this was the best way that we could see this. As you can see, we are trailing Questar in New York State. We have looked at what is impacting this, what are the reasons. And one of the things within our comprehensive education plan, we've talked a lot about writing, because what we've seen from our students is they struggle on the second part of New York State tests. They are struggling with the writing pieces, take information and synthesizing it. Our testing participation only pulls by 3 through 8, but I will tell you for the elementary school, we only had 4 kids opt out last year over grades 3, 4, and 5. So we have had really good participation over the time of students. Our math scores, you can see, we are at, we've seen a jump in 4th grade last year, and we're hoping to see that continue as we've implemented a new math curriculum. Similar on the participation. Here is our science testing performance. Last year was the first year of a New York State science test, and I will say 13 does not, it is a stark number. But this is not uncommon for some school districts to see as we went to the new science. We are predicting dramatic improvement this year, which is what generally will happen with New York State as we become more familiar with the testing, as the teachers are more familiar with it. We utilize something within the district called FastBridge. FastBridge is a way that we can benchmark students 3 times a year. So I pulled up these scores as well because they should be predictive as we look towards New York State. So what this means is A-Math is taken by grades 2, 3, and 4. You can see the median score for the fall and then the winter, and the predicted score for the end of the year. So if we take 2nd grade, we're predicting our median to be 207, and the benchmark is 205. So we are predicting our students in grades 2, 3, 2 and 3 to be above. Our students in 4 and 5, we've been looking closely at the data and looking how to put more interventions in place and more supportive instruction so that those students can continue their math growth. And if I'm going too fast, please tell me. A reading is very much a reading comprehension measure. And similarly, we have seen some real growth in students as the year has gone on. The 5th grade with this measure, for whatever reason, that seems to happen on a regular basis. The 5th grade number goes down in the winter and then goes dramatically up again in the spring. I don't know if it's something within the testing software. I really could not give you a strong answer on that, but we do see that number generally rise, and generally we've beaten our predicted score. So in a lot of ways, I'm hopeful. I am keeping a close eye on fourth grade. We're meeting regularly in our PLCs, which are professional learning communities, to meet and discuss instructionally what is happening with our students. Auto reading takes the decoding as well as comprehension for the students. It takes a little more thinking for the students. It's not just straight comprehension. They need to take the information and analyze it. And so once again, we are seeing our students making growth. We are seeing them, steadily moving up, and we hope that this trend, we're sure that this trend is going to continue, and we are looking forward to next week. We'll start our New York State tests. CBM reading, this is called oral reading fluency. It's how many words does a student read in a minute. And I'm very happy with our growth for students. You can see that in every grade level, we're predicted to be above benchmark. By the end of second grade, students should be reading 101 words per minute. In third grade, 125 words per minute. So this, as you look at correlational research, can show is tied to student growth and performance. It's one of the nationally recognized measures to show that students are growing and performing that is easily given. When we look at our early math is those concepts of math. These are, the beginning number sense. And so, we have seen great growth in both kindergarten and first grade. Our first grade teachers are very proud of that number from going 24 to 48. That those students, they've put a lot of work and time into it in those grade levels. And we are very happy, and we credit a lot of that to our new math program that we implemented last year that has really given students a strong number sense, and that is helping them, the Eureka Squared program. Early reading is similar. We are seeing growth among those students. We are closely monitoring first grade, as we are predicted to be somewhat below our benchmark score. But those kindergarten numbers are some of the best that we've had over the years. And I think our trend, as we've looked at the younger grades, we've seen a strong trend forward of those students. Here is our chronic absentee numbers. Sorry this populated this way, but this was the only way I could capture it. This is where we were at the same number of days today, this year and last year. So you can see we have made approximately a 2% jump, or we have 2% less chronic absenteeism. The really good news is generally we've seen that number from this point, the last 2 years, go down another 12% on average as we finished out the year, because as we get into field day and those fun activities at the end of the year, we find that our attendance improves. So this is based on, so 18 absences is considered chronically absent, right? That's our red students. So this is if school ended today, what students have missed 10% of school. So this does not mean they are already chronically absent. This means based on the 10% and the other percentages, this is where we are today. I pulled this morning just so we would have the most accurate picture of where we were for the elementary school. SABRS. So SABRS is a rating scale of students that teachers and students complete that is a social emotional. Students talk about if they feel safe. Teachers talk about if the students seem engaged, if they seem withdrawn. And it's a way for us to, in our behavior and counseling meetings, our students who we see in that tier that need intervention, we're able to pull them and provide supports, whether a variety of reasons. Students are struggling to make friendships. Students are struggling with the academics. Students are struggling to just stay engaged. Students are having struggles at home. Those things we are able to closely monitor. And as you can see, we have seen a steady rise. And that's a good rise. That blue piece would be 74% of our students are in what would, our green range or our normal range. So we went from 50% of our students we're requiring some level of intervention or monitoring to 26% of our students. So, I credit that to our teachers. I credit that to, a lot of the things that we put in place. I put a lot of credit that to Ruler. We really are proud of the Ruler program and the way that helps kids identify their feelings and look at how they can change that, developing a blueprint to help them as they work through emotions. And that's one of the things that, I joke with people all the time. Like, when I was a child, it was stuff those emotions down. And now we want the kids to label them and understand what they are and then be able to work through them. I think that's a really valuable tool for our students. And I think just in 2 years, the Ruler program has shown some really significant progress for our students. So that is a really quick run through of our data. One of the things that I will say is, throughout this year, we have created PLCs, professional learning communities, and our teachers have done a lot of work of talking about writing, talking about how we're monitoring writing, and problem solving what we're seeing. The students are struggling with this. What can we do? How can we build more science into what we're doing, which is always a struggle. You have competing variables as we look, and we're looking to problem solve and figure our best ways to instruct students, provide intervention, provide extension activities so that all of our learners are able to excel. We value our band program, we value our programs within the school, and finding the times for students is something that we're continuing to work on so that we can continue to move our performance forward. So I will open it up to questions.
Yeah, one fast question. How do the benchmarks in FastBridge correlate to proficiency on state exams? Like, how are those generated?
So the proficiency is generated from them on a national level. It's on a national percentile, so it's not a direct correlation, but you would make the assumption that a student who is in the 50th percentile above, 85% of the time they are going to score within that 3 to 4 range on New York State assessments.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Thomas.
I remember when I was in the now elementary school or intermediate school before, students opting in for the state test was actually kind of a bigger problem than it seems now. I remember my mom being very passionate about it, trying to get people to opt in, and I'm curious how it has improved so much. Like, what has changed?
I think our messaging, I think the change in testing, I think those things, yes, it was a huge thing. I got called by people and put on websites because we were making kids take the test allegedly. It was, and it is kind of lost that momentum. At this point, I have one student who's not going to take the ELA because the parent told me they don't like to take ELA. So beyond that, our students are taking the test. I don't have a great answer, Thomas, because it just has evolved, but I think it's a lot of the work that we've been doing. We're having those conversations with parents. We're talking about why it is. One of the messages that I give is, your child is going to have to take a Regents. If the first time a child sits down to take a high stakes test is when they're taking a Regents, that has some real peril in it to me. And whether we like it or not, students are going to take SATs. Students are going to take tests in their life. And I think when they have the support of a teacher and teachers and staff that they have strong relationships with, I think it's important for them to learn that there so that they can make the mistakes or feel that stress with a higher level of support.
Thank you. I had another question about the BOCES and state numbers that were measured against our schools.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if those numbers are statewide numbers or if they're specific for, we think Hudson should be at this.
They're not comparative. I do my comparatives when I look at state, but when I come here, I'm going to present where we are compared to the entire state and then compared to the Questar BOCES.
Okay.
That's what those numbers were.
All right, thank you. And one more question, sorry.
Yep.
Are we going to have a follow-up on this data with the predicted scoring? Are we going to have a follow-up?
So, yes, but New York State,
Next November.
The fall.
yes, in the fall. Last year, we got the data towards the end of October.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So unfortunately, I wish I had the data the next day, because that would really be great in planning and looking at what we're doing. But there has, just due to some psychometric pieces that New York State does with the testing, there generally is a 3 to 4 month delay.
Okay, thank you. I remember that.
Which is why you would get your results in like December, and your mom would be like, "Why am I getting them so late?"
Yes, I remember that. I remember
Yes, indeed.
Do you feel confident, or can you just talk briefly about the switch to computer-based testing, especially for our elementary school kids, and kind of like how you're feeling going into 3rd and 4th graders doing math on the computer for the test?
So I think we've put them in a good place. We've been utilizing a program throughout the year. I think there's going to be a dip between what they would do. And, I advocated 2 years ago to just, I don't want to say it the wrong way, but that we should go in and that's what we should have the students prepared for, because it's coming, right? So I think that we will see our 5th graders and 4th graders doing well. I think our 3rd graders, some of those keyboarding skills, I actually have more concern with ELA than math because of those keyboarding skills, because our students are not always using their typing skills, they're more using their thumbs a lot of times. So that's more of my concern than being able to get that information down in ELA. I think in math, they're well prepared. We use a program called Think Tech, where every classroom every day is presenting a problem, and the students are using the equation editor, because that was our biggest struggle last year in 5th grade, was the use of the equation editor, because kids just wanted to draw like the plus sign or whatever, and they need to use the editor or they do not get the points.
Cool. Thanks.
I just remembered something from the beginning of the school year, one of the earlier board meetings. But there was discussion, and I think it was put into action, but putting, I think it was the 11th grade Regents English tests, putting that rubric on students' desks, or putting a certain rubric on students' desks. And I'm curious if that went into place or happened.
So, for the elementary, I can speak to that, right? So the New York State rubrics, our students have utilized them. They actually take writing samples, and the students have the rubric, and they evaluate them and look at where they are. They do have it, but it's in their binder. It's not necessarily on their desk, because the New York State test, writing rubric is somewhat complex at the elementary level. It's, it's a lot for a 3rd grader to have on their desk. So we probably have done, I would say, between 15 and 25 lessons at each grade level, working with that rubric, so students have an understanding of what a 1, 2, or 3 point answer looks like.
Is that new, or is that something we've been doing?
We've been doing that for a couple years, but we've not always given the students that much access to understand the questions.
Okay. Thank you.
Great.
Okay.
Part 2?
Part 2. This is the exciting part. We have been working on attendance, and thankfully the board has put me in charge, I guess, if you will, of our attendance. Dr. Pennyman has, asked me to chair the attendance task force, and so we have met a lot. Our objectives were to create practices and procedures within the district to impact student attendance. I have been attending the attendance meetings in every building, so that we have some collaboration across the buildings, as well as some similar practices. We have provided supports to students and families. We've had what we call family success plan meetings. And in those family success plan meetings, we talk about what are the barriers and how can we help you. For some parents, they've come in and felt, they feel like they're being called into the principal's office. And, Mr. Collins, who's our attendance monitor, and myself and the other administrators try to make sure the parents understand, we want you here so we can help you. What's causing you to not be able to come to school? What barrier is there? And finally, collaborate with the greater community to look at outside the box ideas to improve attendance. So we have really used the 6 keys there. We've looked at our data practices. We've looked at inclusion and that tiered approach with monitoring and accountability. We were very privileged to be a part of the Center for Inclusive Innovation, the Digital Promise Network. They did a chronic absenteeism insights and innovations, and this was 6 modules. They were about an hour and a half where we would sit down as a group, and it's within the district. It started with administrators. We also added counselors and other members of our attendance teams. And, an example of one of them was unpacking the complexity of chronic absenteeism with Attendance Works. There is so much information out there about Attendance Works and free stuff, but how do you bring it and make it impactful within a district? Because every district is different. So we created an attendance task force coming out of this that met monthly to review practices, documents, and policies. This committee included the administrators within the district, a counselor from each building, Dr. Pennyman, the mayor of Hudson, Kamal Johnson, Joan Hunt, who is Promise Neighborhood, Jen Depew, who I think she's the assistant director, if I got the title correct, of DSS, and then Chris Liberati Kanat, who is the DA for Columbia County. So we reached out to a variety of people to ask to try to get some community members so we could think, what's causing our attendance? Because I will tell you, when you look at our numbers, we have some kids who really are struggling over the years to come to school. How do we help get them to school? We talk about a few things, right? We talk about an attendance procedure. And so we've worked to create a procedure. When students are absent, it takes everyone within the community, and these are our proposed changes from this group. If a student's absent for 3 consecutive days, periods, the homeroom first period teacher will contact and communicate with the parents. We provide a script to say, hey, we were worried about Thomas. We wanted to see, when he's coming back to school, what can we do to support you? Because one of the things that the research would clearly indicate is kids who know that the school cares and their teachers care have better attendance. They want to come to school. I mean, chronic absenteeism has a lot of factors. There's poverty, there's illness, there's all kinds of things, but some of it is how they feel about coming to school. So we want to get that call to the parent. What can we do to help you? When we talk about contacting parents, they can use Parent Square. They can, utilize calls. But I think it's really important that they say, don't ask why the student's absent, but say, we're checking in on you. We want the student back in school. And we are providing scripts that can help to guide the conversation, that are positive. We want to focus on removing barriers, because one thing that's clear in the research on attendance is that if you call and you try to be punitive with it, it is not effective. I talked about the family success plans earlier, right? And we got there at the elementary level. We've worked on this for a lot of years. And so this is what we put in front of the parents, and I changed it a little bit just so that you could read it. But we say to the parents, what can you commit to? What can you sit at the table and commit to, and what can we support you with? Because, we have, we'll sit with parents and we'll have them tell us that their first grader's going to bed at 10 o'clock at night. And we'll ask, that's really hard for them to be able to sleep that amount. Can you commit to getting them to bed by 8 o'clock? What can you commit to? Can you have someone as a backup in case you can't get your kid to school? Is there a relative, a neighbor? Can you set up those medical appointments outside of the school day as much as possible? We a lot of times will say, for the kid who's out a lot and the parent says they're ill, bring them in and send them to the nurse. If they're throwing up, if they have a fever, the nurse will check them out and we will get them back home. But we need students at school. So we look for parents to make these commitments, and we have the parent sign them, we share them with the teacher, and this is something we're looking to take across all the buildings. So as we looked at increasing monitoring and accountability, right? I attended all those meetings, And we, each group created questions for students so we could sit down and ask the student, what are those barriers to you coming? Do you feel comfortable at school? Do you feel safe at school? Who's your favorite person at school? What do you like most at school? What do you a bank of questions, and we did them differently at each level because each level of student is developmentally different. The questions we're going to ask a first grader are not the same questions we're going to ask an 11th grader. We also created a parent questionnaire to interview parents, and we've asked parents, it's really about how can we help you? What is preventing Thomas from coming to school? What is the thing you like most about school or your child likes most about school, and really making those positive. I talked about the family success process, and we've also talked a lot about the consistency of letters to parents about attendance and medical documentation, because as we looked at it, we're not having consistent practices across all the districts. We've always had letters that would go to parents based on 5 days of absence, 10 days of absence, and 16 days of absence. Does anyone know why 16 days of absence?
2 days from chronic absenteeism.
Because that's when you used to have to audit a high school class.
Oh.
So at 16, that was what we always sent, because that meant at the high school level you had to audit the class. Well, those pieces have changed as time has gone on. So we have drafted some policy that will be shared with the policy committee, some edits that we believe should go along with the district policy. One of them is that every school event should have an attendance blurb. We should talk about something. When I say to parents, if your kid misses 2 days of school a month, that's the equivalent by the time they're a senior of a year and a half of school. Parents are blown away by that. It's inconceivable, but that's a lot of school for a kid to miss. Moving concerts and events to late in the day. Anyone who's ever been at an elementary school concert at 8:30 in the morning, I don't know where they're going, but half the kids go home. And so we are looking at how can we make sure to schedule that, or how can we schedule events, like when we do our round of award ceremonies and concerts that are coming, we have a fun activity for K through 2 in that afternoon to keep those kids at school. Because if kids aren't at school, they can't learn. We are in the process of creating an attendance hotline, so a parent can call and they type in 5555, and it rings to one of our attendance monitors or the people who sit at the door, and they will direct it to the building administration. And will we utilize a district van, utilize community agencies? How can we help to get kids to school? Because we do have families who lack transportation, and up until now, we've had times where I think that they have been hesitant to contact the school. We don't want to become a transportation service, but we also want to give resources, because ultimately, if the kids aren't here, we can't teach them. So as a district with an attendance issue, we need to look and think outside the box of what we can do. Talking about our letters, we create letters when a student's absent for 5 days and 12 days, and a doctor's note to be required after 12 days. At the discretion of the building committee. We know kids are going to have a surgery. We know kids may have a familial obligation. That's not what we're talking about. But 12 days for a student is about 8% of the school year. That's a lot of school to miss. So at that point, we're going to ask for documentation from families. And at 12 days, we will be convening a family success plan to talk about how can we support to keep your student in school and that they are not falling into that chronically absent category. Because why is that 10% important? The research would say that is where it dramatically increases a kid's probability of dropping out of high school and being a non-completer. And that's ultimately what this journey is about, graduating students who are ready to be a vibrant part of our society and who are ready to move on to better and great things in life. So we, from my group, we're convening one more time on the 20th, and then I will be sharing with Dr. Pennyman some verbiage and drafts with some changes that we as a committee have talked about and think could help to be impactful for the district. Do you have any questions?
This is a question that I don't actually expect you to know the answer to, but since you are on the committees for each building, I'm a little curious. So the Blue Hawk Academy, to my knowledge, was originally created to help deal with chronic absenteeism and students not in risk of not graduating due to that following COVID. That's what I thought the original mission was, and I'm curious if we've seen successes in that with dealing with chronic absenteeism, and whether or not, I mean, that's still the main goal with that.
So I know that Ms. Zucker is here, but yes, I can speak to the fact that there's been successes in the Blue Hawk Academy. Ms. Zucker, did you present already? Oh, so she'll be presenting, but we've had great successes within the Blue Hawk Academy, and you'll be hearing more about that.
Thank you.
As far as the actual data, they've really been rolled into the high school conversations. So when we're meeting, Mrs. Zucker's there, and Mr. Reardon and Mr. Campbell, and so those students, because they're really registered in the high school as well, they appear on there. So we've had a lot of conversations, but I'd be lying to you if I gave a percentage. But I can tell you we've seen some real improvement with students as we've targeted them to give higher levels of support.
And I do want to say, I want to make sure I throw in this caveat that we do not separate the Blue Hawk Academy from the high school, because they are the high school.
Yeah.
Just
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for being here. Next, we have board reports. Policy committee.
Yeah. All right. We've got a few policies that are going to be sent off to lawyers for final review so that then we can then put them up for the full board approval. So those are an official policy to have an ex officio student member of the board. We have obviously had a student member of the board for many years, but we haven't codified that in policy, and New York state ed law now requires us to do so. So we'll make sure that we get that. We also, Leslie updated our voting procedures just to make sure that they are updated for 2025 and reflect the way that current voting systems work. So we've got that ready to go. We've got the policy development and adoption policy, which is like the policy on creating policies, that also is getting sent off to the attorney just to make sure that the language of that, these all just have like updates to make sure that they represent truly sort of like where we're at with the district, what we need to be doing. And then, did I miss any there? Those are the ones that I think are ready. The organizational chart, we're holding on for a minute just to look into like a couple of additional things. And similarly, the promotion and retention policy, I know we had the first reading on that. We got one more round of feedback back from the lawyers that centered around really being clear on the language of what happens after summer school for kids. And so we're just taking one final look and making sure that that language is tight and ready, and then that will get put back onto the agendas and shared out with everybody. And I think that was everything. Oh, the other one, sorry. And then the other thing that we did was we created a draft of an official charter for our policy committee today to really like hone in on that. And so we've got a draft of that that's also going to go off to the lawyers. And one thing to be aware of is we spent a good amount of time today discussing the fact that the policy committee is a great committee to get teachers, family members, additional community members involved. This is not a committee that has to be solely the people that are sitting here. So if there are folks in the community that are interested, to like stay tuned for updates on being able to join that committee.
Great, thank you. Thank you for spearheading all that. Sounds like you guys got a lot done. I assume we want to pass the voting policy or adopt the revised voting policy prior to the election, May 20th?
The training is May 12th.
Okay.
So hopefully we can adopt it at the next meeting.
Perfect, thank you. You guys good?
Yeah.
Okay. Facilities, there was no facilities committee meetings. Wanted to point out that Calvin did mention there would be community meetings where public could hear more about the planned capital projects, which will be on the ballot later in May. Those meetings are listed in our upcoming meeting dates, which will be read at the end of the meeting. Audit committee?
Audit committee has not met since the last report, but we'll target a May meeting to review the corrective action plan.
Awesome, thank you. At this time, there is no need for an early executive session. Brings us to the personnel agenda. I'd like to make a motion to accept personnel agenda items A 1 through 5 and B 1 through 3.
Second.
All in favor? Brings us to public forum.
We have Peter Myers.
Peter Myers. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to convene into the public comment period of our meeting. Although state law does not require us to hold a public comment period, we have chosen to do so because we believe it is crucial for us to hear from our community members about their concerns and issues. Having said that, please note that the board is here to listen. The public comment period is not designed to be a discussion. Accordingly, please do not expect the board to respond to your concerns and questions tonight. We take your questions and concerns seriously and want to have sufficient time to process and research issues if need be. We will, however, respond to your questions and concerns at a future meeting or have the proper staff member get back to you. Under state and federal privacy laws, we're unable to entertain any comments or questions about school personnel. On these matters, we ask you to go through the appropriate administrative channels. Please ask the board, ask speakers to direct their comments to the board directly. Each speaker gets 3 minutes. Mr. Myers?
Good evening. I think I'm all right with this. I wish you could change that, the reading you do before public session. It sounds like a Saddam Hussein speech before a legislative session. It's very anti-public, and I care a lot about the public. I would appreciate if you looked at that. I'm here really to just talk about the audit report, which came in March 27th. To me, seems like an argument for not doing this budget. Because, if I may, it's 60, 70 pages long, and I'll just jump to page 60. I don't know if you want to follow along. But this audit report makes a point of changes from payroll to payroll in the internal control procedures for payroll. Not a good thing. They talk about during the audit, we noted that the general fund checking account at year end had a negative reconciled balance. Not a good thing. Transfers to cover the payments made were not done until July. Not a good thing. Moving on to the reserve plan, the district has not updated the written plan for the reserve. This would include the fund balance. And for developing a written plan for use of the reserves. The board is responsible for having an annual review of the report and the activity, and once approved by the board, the report should be posted on the district website. I'm not following all of this minutely, but that doesn't seem to have happened. And the current law, the law establishes the maximum unassigned fund balance that can be retained by a school district, and the current law limits this amount to 4% of the ensuing year's budget. I'm not sure if that's being followed, but at least that's what the auditor says we've got to check on. Let me go to some of the other, sorry. So something we all know, that there were significant changes in the business office personnel during this year. And this is significant from an audit point of view. The business office, in capital letters, manual was based off the previous staffing assignment, which is not a good thing. You should be basing the budget processes on the manual. So apparently we don't have a manual. The risk to the district is that as compliance regulations change, which they do, complexities place task burdens on the district employees. Welcome to Hudson. New employees in the budget office is serious business, and I'm not even an accountant, but I know that from being on the board for 5 years.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. That's your 3 minutes.
So 3 minutes?
Yes,
You're up?
thank you, yes.
May I make a recommendation that the board, well, I'll make 2 recommendations. Thanks, 3 minutes, that seems to be a new policy. So, I recommend that this board immediately, based on this audit, which has all kinds of stuff in it, that the board immediately conduct a forensic audit that would take care of the many things that this audit clearly
Thank
says
you.
it didn't do.
We mentioned we're having a audit committee meeting where we'll construct a corrective action plan, so we're on top of it. Thank
That's
you.
good. So, and then.
Mr. Myers, your 3 minutes is up.
I'm going to say it anyway. You're going to have to carry me out of here. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Except for basic, this is my second recommendation, except for basic votes required by law,
Mr.
including
Myers,
this budget.
there are other people who are here to speak.
Including this budget. Mr. I recommended the board, this board, take no significant changes, votes that would impact a contract or renewal of a contract and until it gets its forensic audit done. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And change the 3-minute rule. It's crazy.
Next, we have Nikki Janito.
Hello, everybody. In case somebody doesn't know who I am, my name is Nikki Janito. I'm the president of the AIDS unit. I've also been employed for the Hudson School District for 25 years. I want to speak quickly about the budget, and I'm kind of disappointed in how the whole thing has come about this year. And the last budget that we saw in my unit caused mass hysteria because there was no communication from anybody about what was going to be on that screen. As I talked to the teachers union, they were told, but we were not a word. Now we come today, everything's going to take care of, but that doesn't help what has already helped. I actually did lose a member because when they saw that on the screen, they decided they had to go find another job because they could not wait around to be fired. So we really got to work on the communication. Lots of things has happened to my unit. We're no longer on interview committees like we used to be. We're no longer on calendar committees like we used to be. I don't know what's happening, but we kind of need to work this out and work together because it's just very disappointing. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you for being here.
Next, we have Shannon Sullivan.
So I want to piggyback on what Nikki was talking about. I've been here a couple of times over the past couple of weeks. You've seen me here. And I was here that day when that slide came up and all of those positions were listed. We watch these at home. We do our laundry. We have this on in the background. This is live streamed into people's houses. And for us to see the actual positions listed was really shocking, especially in the case that you very carefully delineate that during public speaking times, nothing regarding personnel should or can be discussed, yet people's job positions were listed on that slide. And the other thing that happened that day was that as you all saw those job positions on that slide and you looked at those jobs that were being eliminated, specifics, reading, psychology, 8 teaching aides, there was no pushback at all to see if there were other cuts from other places. There was no mention of cuts to administration, nor has that happened again tonight. There was no mention of cuts to central administration, nor was there any discussion of that tonight. We talk about retirements as though they're not layoffs. We talk about vacant positions as though these are things that aren't significant. And as a teacher who sits in this meeting and listens to that and sees that, the feeling it gives is a feeling of disregard for the people who work with the children. Education started as a one-room schoolhouse, a teacher and students. And to see teachers being repeatedly put up there and aides put up there without cuts to other branches makes it really feel like we're the solution to the budget problem and nothing else is being discussed. And it makes me, as someone who's worked here for a really long time, really upset to see my colleagues treated that way, and it makes me feel like we're not valued, honestly. So thank you for your time.
Understood. Thank you for sharing.
Next, we have Wayne Kinney.
Good evening. For those who don't know me by now, Wayne Kinney, science teacher, president of the Hudson Teacher Association. A couple things with budget that I think are important. I have had these conversations with the superintendent. I've been trying to get hold of Ms. Ferry. Am I saying that right? Because I want to talk to her about some of the insurance stuff. First of all, I think, I know it would take some time, I think researching how much pilots are affecting our school budget would be important. I know the board has no say in pilots. They are done by the town boards or the city board, but how are those decisions impacting our budget? Because we do most likely have a bigger budget than the towns and the cities do. We have more employees, more supplies to buy. A couple of years ago, the previous superintendent pointed out that the reason our instruction was so high is because we had a lot more senior level teachers in our district than other districts around us. Therefore, we were paying higher salaries because we had more experienced teachers. I don't know if that's still the case. I know there are around 60 to 65 non-tenured teachers right now in the district, but that does not mean they're not at a higher salary because they may have worked somewhere else before coming here, but that also impacts it. The insurance. The consortium is a mess. For those who don't know, we are part of the Rensselaer Columbia Green Healthcare Consortium. How the consortium works, each district that belongs to it is still its own entity. So even though our percentages don't look that great, because I know they're going up a lot, I know the percentages, there are districts that are going up more than us. Everybody doesn't get the same percentage increase by district. The other thing is, with the one prescription plan that we have, if we have a lot of employees in the district that are taking a high-end prescription, okay, that cost doesn't get spread equally throughout the healthcare consortium. That comes back to us. So our prescription plan will sometimes increase more greatly than other prescriptions, the same prescription plan in other districts. So it is very difficult from year to year to predict or budget ahead of time for those healthcare stuff. We usually have the numbers by now. You know, I know each plan's going up on average about 10%. The CVS plan last night, CVS Cardmark is going up a lot more than that. So that does have an effect on the budget. And I think people need to know and understand that, because that's part of the budget that even you as a board cannot control.
Sure.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Wayne.
That's it.
All right. Thank you all for speaking. Next, we have the superintendent's report and the spotlight on excellence in education. Okay. Do you want to do your report first?
I can.
We're going to do the superintendent's report first.
So tonight, I'd like to say congratulations to our students who are embarking on college next year. Our students in Hudson are going to college. or other places, but our students are being successful, and I want to continue to highlight the successes of our students. So from left to right, we have Jake Peterson, then Jawan Morrison, Caitlin Novak, and Lynn Carr. They have recently been accepted to one or more universities, so that is something worth celebrating. So the faculty and staff were treated to a delicious barbecue lunch on April 9th. This was an initiative that was solely proposed by our students of My Brother's Keeper program and Blue Hawk Academy. So I want to thank a great big thank you to the MBK scholars as well as our Blue Hawk Academy students. The teachers and staff were treated to a delicious lunch. It was served by the students, and it was just a wonderful day. And I will always say, it's not the program, to quote Todd Whitaker, but it's the people. It's the people that make our district become successful. So, it's Ivy League Day tours Harvard University. So during our spring break last week, Dr. Courtwright Torres took a group of students on Monday to Yale to visit. And we're starting this, where we'll be visiting Ivy League schools every year. And then on Tuesday, during our spring break, I took over 21 students to Harvard. The students had a magnificent time, and yes, I said to our students, see yourselves here. You can attend Harvard, and you can attend Yale if you would like to. So I don't ever want our students to think that there's nothing that they can't attain, and they had a fantastic visit. And it was great for me as the superintendent just to be able to have that up close and personal time with our students, and I'm hoping that we get more of a turnout next year. Operation Safe Stop. So on Thursday the 24th, Operation Safe Stop will take place. And what this is a statewide initiative. It's aimed at improving the safety of children as they board and disembark from school buses. So what happens each year, numerous children face serious dangers when motorists illegally pass or stop a stop school bus. So this can result in injuries and fatalities. And so to address this problem, the initiative brings together the Hudson City School District, bus contractors, law enforcement. And what will happen, they'll monitor specific routes during the school bus operations to enforce the safety laws. And then there's a slogan that comes out of Operation Safe Stop. The slogan is, every time, every child, every stop. So, and every day. So the initiative underscores the importance of the school bus safety and highlights the need for the community and collaboration in creating a secure environment for our students. So we want to continue to partner with our community in ways, and this is a great venture that will be happening on Thursday. Now I'm going to go back to our spotlight on excellence. Yes, Dr. KT is not here tonight, and Dr. Pressey is not here tonight because they're both not feeling their best right now. They're both. However, I want to give a spotlight on excellence to Dr. KT for going above and beyond. Yes, it was spring break, and yes, she could have taken her vacation time, but she used her time that day to accompany our students to the trip to Yale, and that's going above and beyond. So I'm going to spotlight Dr. KT, and I think it's important to spotlight my exec team from time to time and what they do above and beyond. Next, I'd like to spotlight Dr. Pressey. So Dr. Pressey has been spotlighted for just setting up our field trips, getting the bus. She was sick last week, but even though she was sick, she was still wanting to be text what's happening. She made sure that we had our buses there. She made sure that she found funding through our collaboration with our LEAPS grant to pay for the buses. So none of this really came out of our district funds. These were grant funded. Mental health helped us and supported us and paid for us to be able to have those wonderful coach buses to take us on the trip. And then Dr. Pressey is also a part of the My Brother's Keepers staff, so she's also been spotlight for that. And overall, I'd like to give a spotlight on excellence to our My Brother's Keepers staff overall, just for working with our students, working with those young men. There's been several young men that I'm hoping later on this year can come in and talk about how being in My Brother's Keeper have changed. I have witnessed the metamorphosis and the change in one or two of our students that I knew where they were last year and where they are now based on their experiences from being in the program. So My Brother's Keeper staff, we want to thank them for the delicious lunch last week and for just, the students really wanted to do something for their teachers, and they were very passionate about that. And just for them doing that, and for the staff to being there to supporting them along the way. And last but not least, Mrs. Zucker's here, so I also want to spotlight the Blue Hawk Academy staff. They were an intricate part of this, and for making sure that the lunch was also provided to the students, to our staff and faculty last week. So everything went well, and the Blue Hawk Academy staff went above and beyond to make this happen. They had a whole plan going. They collaborated with Blue Hawk and My Brother's Keeper staff. So Ms. Zucker, you deserve to be spotlighted along with your whole staff. So thank you. And so if the board would come up and have a picture with Ms. Zucker. For the rest of our Spotlight on Excellence honorees, we'll get them at one of the board meetings going forward. This ends my superintendent report for tonight. Thank you.
Next, we have new business. We do have policy 4750, promotion retention policy for second reading, still waiting on more revisions from our legal team. But anybody have any notes, questions, comments? No? Okay, great. Brings us to the 2025-2026 Questar 3 administrative budget vote. Make a motion to accept the Board of Cooperative Educational Services of Rensselaer, Columbia, and Greene Counties budget set forth in the 2025-2026 tentative administrative budget document in the amount of $7,461,009.
Second.
All in favor? Next, we have Questar 3 board member vote for Edmund Brooks. Make a motion to cast a vote for the election of Mr. Brooks of Columbia County, New York, and the Ichabod Crane Central School District as a member of the Board of Cooperative Educational Services, Rensselaer, Columbia, Greene Counties.
Second.
All in favor? Make a motion to cast a vote for the election of Mr. David Finch, Greene County, District of Residence, Greenville Central School District, as a member of the Board of Cooperative Educational Services, Rensselaer, Columbia, Greene Counties.
Second.
All in favor? I make a motion to cast a vote for the election of Ms. Nadine Gazzola, Columbia County District of Residence to Conic Hill Central School District as a member of the Board of Cooperation Educational Services, Rensselaer, Columbia, Greene Counties.
Second.
All in favor? And make a motion to cast a vote for the election of Miss Melanie Spock, Columbia County, New York, District of Residence, Chatham Central School District, as a member of the Board of Cooperative Educational Services, Rensselaer, Columbia, Greene Counties.
Second.
All in favor? Brings us to consensus agenda.
I'd like to request that we pull A, B, C, and E for further discussion.
Great. So then we'll make a motion to accept consensus agenda items B, D, and F through I.
Can you say that again?
You said A, you
Oh,
said.
A,
Yeah, A, B, C, and E.
A, B, C, and E. Okay, so then I make a motion to accept consensus agenda items D, F, G, H, and I.
Second.
All in favor?
So I certainly applaud any effort to, show our students opportunities for the future. I'm glad they got to go attend some colleges and get some experience. I don't know if all the board members here know when we approved those field trips.
They were approved at the last board meeting.
Correct.
My recollection is they were on the agenda. I'm not sure if the
So
attachments were there.
So this is why I asked the question at the top of the
Yeah.
meeting, because they seem to have been added to the agenda after it was delivered to the board, and we didn't really get notice for it. Since it wasn't a separate agenda item, it wasn't clear that we had additional items to approve. So I just want to reiterate and make sure we understand when we're approving the minutes, it's what happened at the meeting, when we're approving the agenda, when we're voting on the agenda, that it's clear that anything's been added for a meeting. Just reemphasize that
Yes.
for the future.
Absolutely, yeah, working with Leslie to make sure all the agenda notes are clear beforehand and that we're getting notifications as things are added. But yeah, we should all be on top of that for sure.
Regarding item C, we have a budget transfer for $12,000. I think we've received a total of about $35,000 in budget transfers this year. I guess I'm just curious as to, with all of the negative accounts we have in our chart of accounts, what was the priority for this? And I applaud doing this correctly, but why are we only getting this?
You mean item D, right?
Yeah, the budget transfer.
Sorry, I heard you say C.
No, it's C. I'm sorry, it's C.
Budget transfer.
No, it's
No, it's D.
It's
It's C
C
in the-
now because the agenda got changed. We pulled something.
Thank you.
No,
No.
he's looking
No,
at
it's the
computer
budget
version when he
transfer.
said which ones.
So, clarification, the agenda was changed at the top of the meeting, or right before the meeting. We talked about it at the agenda. When can we expect more budget transfers, I guess, is my real question.
As soon as Ms. Ferry and I get together and give them to you, once we look at where we need to why and where and when the money will come. So we've been working a lot on trying to get this draft budget to you. And so, and we're working on that and looking and working with the rest of the business office team. So once we have time to sit down together between now and next, you'll have more
Okay.
at the next board meeting.
I think this form is one that's been used by the district for years, and I would just ask that there's a purpose added to it, as well as some sign-off from the business office that there's sufficient budget, that we're, some sort of certification to the board so that we can, rely upon it.
Yeah, we also need to revisit the policy on budget transfers, which can outline a lot of these processes and procedures.
Regarding E, I'm going to ask that we don't approve this report. This is the budget status report for March. There's a number of items on it that I've requested via email get addressed. There is an adjustment to principal and interest debt service payments of $630,000. I don't believe there's any support in any documentation for that adjustment. It's been there all year. I believe the auditor identified it as encumbrances that weren't properly relieved in the 23-24 school year, so we need to get those out of there. In addition, on debt service, we are going to pay our bonds in June. I'm confident of that. I'd like to see them encumbered. And when that happens, the unencumbered balance for debt service is going to go from 5.1 million to 0. Teachers' retirement system, it's showing an unencumbered balance of $1.9 million. I'm confident we're going to pay that as well. I'd like to see an encumbrance for it. Those two adjustments alone are $7 million. And when you take $7 million and subtract it from the $5.8 million that shows as unencumbered right now, it's going to show as negative. Now, I think there are other adjustments that need to be made here, but I don't think we're going to be able to do our financial governance role very well if we're not getting updates to these. So I'm asking again, to please get those updates to us. I don't want to approve these statements until we get those. So if at the next meeting we can have those, I would appreciate it.
Okay, so that's just item E that we will have to pull.
Which item?
E, the budget status report.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess, given all of that, are we still comfortable with having a budget approval on the agenda tonight?
The options would be approving it tonight or holding the alternative would be holding a special meeting on Thursday to vote on a revised budget. Certainly open to opinions from the rest of the board.
I would be in support of holding a revised budget meeting on Thursday, a meeting to review the revised budget on Thursday or vote on.
I agree. I think we got these recent numbers like a couple hours before the board meeting, and to be able to dig in more deeply.
Okay. And just to clarify, your main concern and request, Matt, you want to see a revised budget status report at the same time as we see the new budget, so that we're confident in that it's based on real figures.
It couldn't hurt.
Okay.
So do you want to schedule a special meeting on Thursday?
Yes, I believe we
And
do.
what time?
6
Can we
p.m.
go a little early?
What's up?
Can we do it a little early? 5?
5 p.m.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so we'll hold a special meeting on Thursday at 5 p.m., but we will make a motion to accept consensus agenda items A
and C, I think.
A and C.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve consensus items A and C, draft board meeting minutes and budget transfers.
Great. Second? All in favor? All right. Brings us to public forum.
Nobody else signed up.
Nobody else signed up. Nothing for old business. Does bring up board discussion. Anybody else have anything to add? No? All right. Well, in light of making a special meeting on Thursday, one of my favorite adages is measure twice, cut once. So we'll do it again then. We have no executive session. Upcoming dates, sorry, skip that. Following meetings are scheduled. There is a community proposed 25-26 budget presentation Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025 at 5 p.m. in the MCSES auditorium. Voter registration day is Thursday, April 24th, 2025, from 4 to 8 p.m. in the high school cafeteria. There is a facilities committee community capital project energy performance contract and proposed 2025-2026 budget presentation on Tuesday, April 29th, 2025 at 5 p.m. in the high school cafeteria. A community proposed 2025-2026 budget meeting Monday, May 5th, 2025 at 5 p.m. in the Hudson area library in the community room. There is a policy committee meeting Tuesday, May 6th, 2025 at 5 p.m. in the high school library. There's another special Board of Education meeting on Tuesday, May 6th, 2025 at 6 p.m. Budget hearing in the high school auditorium. There is a community proposed 2025-2026 budget presentation Monday, May 12th, 2025 at 5 p.m. in the A.B. Shaw Firehouse. There is a facilities committee community capital project energy performance contract and proposed 2025-2026 budget presentation Tuesday, May 13th, 2025 at 5 p.m. in the high school cafeteria. And there is a policy committee meeting Tuesday, May 20th, 2025 at 5 p.m. in the high school library. Also a special Board of Education.
Mark,
Yes.
we changed that time to 7 because the meeting starts at 8.
Ah, correct, yes. So there's a policy committee meeting Tuesday, May 20th, 2025 at 7 p.m. in the high school library. Special Board of Education meeting Tuesday, May 20th, 2025 at 8 p.m. in the high school library. Annual budget vote and board member election. And again, there is a special budget meeting Thursday, April 24th at 5 p.m. So at this time, we make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 7:52.
Second.
All in favor? Great. Thank you all for being here.